What's going on, people? Myke C-Town here, and today I'm going to be giving my thoughts on the newest album from Alcest, entitled Les Chants de l'Aurore. And before we go any further, just so you know, I'm going to butcher every single song title on this album. I'm not French. I don't speak French. I barely speak English, so I'm going to do the best I can, but, save your comments. But yeah, Alcest has been around since the late 90s, and most people know that they started off as a black metal band, and in my opinion, pretty quickly moved away from that sound into a sound that was really unique and all their own. I won't give you a full history on them, as if you're not familiar, you can go back and check out all of their older albums. In fact, I highly suggest you do that because it's quite a ride. But yeah, they've been one of my favorite bands for a really long time, ever since I heard them back in the early 2000s. Seen them a few times, and they're just a really special band. But this album, Les Chants de l'Aurore, is their 7th full-length, and I'll go ahead and say, it's absolutely fantastic. It starts off with the song, I'm gonna put the titles here so you can read along, but Ko Morobi, I think, and it begins with these beautiful sounds just sweeping in with this beautiful combination of melody and noise almost before the drums come in and the melody begins to become more prominent, and it's such an earworm of a riff that sounds fantastic all before the faster drum part comes in and the song really picks up, and it just keeps your attention from there, seamlessly moving from part to part. I feel like Alcest is masters at transitions. You can never necessarily tell what's going to happen, but you can almost feel it. And Nij's vocals sound as good as they've ever sounded, and they're nestled perfectly within the mix. And I'm a big lyrics guy, but the lyrics are all in French, so I did place them into Google Translate just to kind of get an idea of what the songs were about. Of course, I don't necessarily trust Google Translate to be a one-to-one translation, but I do think they give you a sort of decent idea of what we're hearing. And if Google Translate gave me a decent translation, I love these lines. I woke up in my inner sanctuary, spring trails without return, flooded with light. I want to talk about the song Amethyst, which is one of my favorite songs on here. The guitar riffs on this song are all so well crafted and really bright and lively. And it's here that I noticed that the drummer, Winterhalter, is doing some really interesting things, especially on the sort of bridge that comes in at around the 2-minute mark. And when the vocals come back in, I remember getting goosebumps the first time I heard it. It's absolutely gorgeous, and even better when Nij brings the rough vocals back for accents here and there. I just think it sounds great. And maybe I'm on an island here, but this part reminds me a bit of the Japanese band Envy. And I say that as a positive because Envy is another one of my favorite bands. And again, I don't know if what we're getting is a one-to-one translation here, so we can't put too much stock into what Google's saying, but if we're getting a decent translation, then I love these lines. I felt each of your pains intensely, and I saw my whole life flash by, saw my whole life again. It's dealing with this sort of idea of, I don't necessarily want to say reincarnation, but some sort of spiritual life cycle that kind of repeats itself, which I guess is kind of reincarnation. But I like the idea of this all being triggered by experiencing the pain of someone that you care about. And I also really liked the way that this one closed. I wish you could tell me where I come from. I once asked the mountains and the rivers. Always knew deep down that I come from very far away and that in essence we are all immortal beings. Again, this goes back to the idea of spiritual life cycles, and the idea of all of us being more than our physical shells, and being something much larger and more transcendent. Not saying I necessarily agree with that, but I really like the idea of this notion being explored. Another of my favorite songs is L'Enfant de la Lune. I love the way it transitions in from the previous song, which was Reminiscence, which was this gorgeous, almost interlude with these beautiful piano parts and strings and this angelic voice, which all comes together in this just ethereal moment. But this song comes in with this spoken word, and it sounded so beautifully spoken that I was driven to translate it as well. And it is apparently Japanese, and Google says that it's saying this. Tonight the stars dance to revive hope. The stars dance and sigh to the rhythm of the waves, and the gentle moon watches over us, rising over the shore, falling back into the sleeping black water, flowing into the depths of our souls. And then it launches into this really driving riff with pounding drums that really get you going. And I love the inclusion of the really pretty choir-like voices, but there's also this riff that hits a little after the 2-minute and 10-second mark on this song that's one of my favorite parts on the entire album. And I just love how it goes in and out of clean and distorted guitar parts during the last quarter of the song. It sounds incredible. And I think Les Adieux is a perfect closer for this album. The beautiful, almost drony, clean guitars that go on for a bit before being joined by Nija's beautiful vocals, and then these subtle synths and more angelic voices before having all of that fade out, leaving just the guitars to walk you out of the album. The moment it ended, I wanted to start it all over again, but I also wanted to live in that moment for a second because I was like, wow, what an incredible way to end this album. And if Google is not lying to me, I think the lyrics to this closer are absolutely gorgeous. So it says, I picked this sprig of heather. Autumn is dead. Remember, we won't see each other again on earth. Smell of time, sprig of heather, and remember that I'm waiting for you. That is simply breathtaking to me. I've read through the lyrics a few times, and I can't necessarily pick up on a lyrical theme, but I just love the way the album ends with a song that sounds so sad and haunting with lyrics that match perfectly. But overall, I think this is a fantastic album. When I first listened to it, my initial gripe was that I thought it should be longer. And it's funny, I knew it was 7 songs, but the album absolutely flies. I was legit shocked to see that this album is almost 45 minutes long. I legit thought it was 30 at the most. But I think this is actually some of their best work. The first positive that jumped out at me were the drums. I think the drums sound fantastic. They sound very real, very live. They sound very warm. And I think the way that Winterhalter plays is very intricate, and the rolls and the fills that he's laying down, they add a lot to what the guitars and such are already doing. And he knows exactly when to hit on certain notes that will make the melody carry so much further than had he just been playing, a straight beat. They complement the sound without overpowering it, which is a really hard thing to do, in my opinion. The guitars are also great. The riffs are well composed, and the album isn't just drowned in reverb. A lot of bands that go for this sound, they just blend the guitars with reverb and effects to the point of there not really being much to chew on. And that's not me saying that that's a bad thing. I like when some bands do that. I enjoy when bands go to the My Bloody Valentine Valentine school of riffing, and then they wash it even more with effects. You know, that's cool, but I like that this album doesn't do that. I can pick out the melodies pretty easily, even when there's quite a bit of effects being laid on top of them. I loved their last album, Spiritual Instinct, but in my opinion, this album is better. I didn't love the guitar sound on the last album. It was a bit too thick for my taste for this kind of music, but the sound here is more akin to what they had on Kodama, and I think it's perfect. You know, and I truly think that Nij is getting better and better at writing these fantasy-like songs that make albums like this feel like they're soundtracks to the most stunning and emotional film you've ever seen. And if I had one complaint, I guess it would be that they didn't take a lot of chances on this album. You know, it sounds like a pretty straightforward example of what they've been doing for a while, but I also don't personally need them to take chances, you know? The only thing that I look for with Alcest albums is a sound that I can get stuck on, you know, a sound that will stick with me, you know, songs that I feel like are taking me places mentally and emotionally that other bands may not be capable of doing. And I 100% get that here. Alcest, once again, they show why they are purveyors of this scene and are standing in an absolute league of their own. But yeah, that's going to do it for this review. Hopefully you dug it. I want to thank Barty and Alan at Heavy Metallurgy for inviting me to do this. And thanks to Alcest for providing the soundtrack to the summer for me. And yeah, if you want to see me run my mouth a bit more about other stuff like metal and punk and folk and records, go here. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you around.